Alright, so what we have here now is when pushing forward, we're going to go ahead and flip and mirror this object onto this side. And how we go about doing that, right now the pivot point is at the origin, which is, if I turn on my grid, display grid, you'll see that it's at 0, 0, 0. Now, that's because I combined objects, and by default, once you combine objects, it will automatically set the pivot point at 0, 0, 0. In order to center your pivot, you can go modify center pivot, but in which case we really want it to be at the origin. But just for this example, if I take this and let's say you don't know how to change your pivot point at all manually, which was what we need to do right now, and having it we need the x to be 0, x equals 0 on the anchor point or pivot point. So I'm going to hold D to adjust my pivot point, and I'm going to hold X to snap it to the grid, and I'm going to go ahead and snap it to 0, 0, 0 anyway. So in case yours isn't there now, at least you know how to do that. And now one thing I want to do is I want to clear out my inputs. So if you look here, all the stuff that I did to this model is all retained. All that information is retained unless we clear it out. And actually, after working on a model for quite some time, this can actually start to bog down this software because just like anything else, it takes memory to hold and store all that information. And it also can cause like glitching and things like that too. So one of the things we want to do is if you click on your attribute editor and you hit right click over here, I just wanted to show you that all that information is also in here. Now from that being said, what we want to do is just do an edit and delete all by type history. And now what we do is you'll see if I right click, I can't right click actually because there's only the main core attributes this needs in order for it to actually be a shape. So now Maya just reads this as like this is the shape. There's no other information in here that I need to remember. You're good to go basically. So now at this point when I want to mirror it, I'm going to press Command. I'm going to do an edit duplicate special, and I'm going to create an instance, and I'm going to put the scale at -1, and this, instead of a copy, make it an instance and scale at -1 and hit duplicate special. And one of the things you'll notice is it pops up right on the opposite side. And the other thing is now I can adjust my vertices both simultaneously. Now another really cool thing that I had mentioned to you guys earlier is that now that it's at this point, at least the fender, what I can do is I'm going to take my fender and I'm going to hold shift, right click, and I'm going to go to smooth. And that's it. I'm going to now click off my object, and you'll see by default, without this being put into 3 mode, you'll notice that right away it becomes smoothed out. You can smooth it a little bit more. You could, I wouldn't recommend going past this geometry count. Soften edge, soften edge. You technically could, but depending on what kind of hardware you're running, there's a strong chance that if you go past 1 or 2 subdivision levels, depending on the poly count, it could crash. So then that's how you go about mirroring and running a smooth group. And that's that. I'm going to turn off my grid, and I'll do one more thing. I'll create the tire. It's not crazy complicated, but create a cylinder again, rotate it at 90, and this one I'm just going to leave at its right now at its size basically. And then here I'm going to go to this view, I'm going to just slide it over, scale into place, and scale a little bit more. Go to face, and I'm going to select these ones, and this is just a box modeling trick. And what I'm going to do is just follow my reference exactly how it looks. Extrude, and I'm going to scale in, and then here I'm going to extrude and scale in. That'll work. And scale in, and pull outwards. And the last thing I'm going to do on here, soften edges, I'm going to highlight my edges. These two I'm going to highlight, and now I'm going to bevel. And segments 2. And here, something to make it a little bit more round, like an actual tire, which I'd say that's good for this. And now here, I'm going to bevel these as well. And 2 segments. And go ahead and check it in smooth mode. Okay. Now I like the way that looks. I'm going to do now an edit, delete all by type, history, and now I can also start to flip everything as well. Now the one trick to this particular shape here, since all of the settings are all sort of wonky in the channel box, what I'm going to do is I need to do what is called a freeze transformation, or zero out my channel box. And I'm going to go modify, freeze transformations. It's going to zero everything out except the scales. Scales at 1, 1, and 1. And if it were at 0, 0, 0, there would be nothing there. That's why it needs to be 1, 1, and 1. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one as well. And I'm going to change my pivot point. I can turn on my grid again. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to DX and snap my pivot point to the grid. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command D and scale at -1. And here, now what I'm going to do is, I could do a duplicate special as well. Edit, duplicate special. And then one last thing, I can do that one more time. I can take both of these and do a Command D and drag these back. So they're over here. And this one is particularly green, more than likely because this is the original duplicate special. If I were to go ahead and do a Command Shift D duplicate special, it'll not. So that's the reason that one was green. And that is everything up to this point. We went over duplicate special, freezing transformation, center pivot, and yeah. So this is where we'd like to get to. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.